Right, we're good to go. This is the first ever Nut Job podcast, Chasing the Light. And my first guest on the Nut Job podcast is Stacey Stumpy Cresswell, who I met through the Invictus training camps. And we gained quite a bond when we were out on Team UK in Vegas. So I just want to welcome Stacey. What do you want me to call you? Stacey Stumpy?
You call me whatever you want, sweetheart. You know that. I don't care.
All right, then I'll go for Stacey.
Whatever's easier for you to remember.
So, yeah. So I just want to go. We'll just talk about you for a little bit and where you come from and where you've been and stuff like that, and your career and recovery process. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background of where you come from? We can all tell that you're a Geordie by that accent.
Aye. Well, that goes without saying. Yeah, I was. So my name's Stacey Cresswell. I'm 51-year-old. I was born and bred in the West End of Newcastle. I was born in Scotswood. Not that that's anything to be proud of. Like we got out of there as soon as we. I was born and bred in the West End of Newcastle. Cut a long story short. Not going to go through all that. I joined the army when I was 16. I joined the Junior Leaders Regiment Royal Artillery, which was based at the time in Bramcote near Nuneaton. Now, sadly, doesn't exist anymore. That was in 1988, probably before you were born.
Not quite. Is it my youthful looks?
Nah. So I done a year's basic training because I joined the army at 16, and then from there I went to my regiment, which was my first active regiment was 16 Air Defence Regiment, Royal Artillery, which was basically full of 85% mad jocks, but they were the best bunch of guys in the world. So 4 months into being with the regiment, as soon as I got to the regiment, walked through the gate, they said, "Oh, by the way, you're off to South Armagh in January," and this was August. So I thought, "Oh, fantastic! Here we go. This is all we need." So just turned 18-year-old, first tour of South Armagh down in the borders. Now that's where my original injury happened. So I got back from there, got posted to places like Germany, but the original injury that I had started in South Armagh. I was patrolling out one day. Now, if you've ever been out patrolling, which many of you have, you'll know it's not a stroll in the park. It's not like a picnic out in the middle of the field. You're carrying stupid amounts of kit for long periods of time with very little rest. So I started getting what I thought at the time, or was at the time, felt like cramps behind my knee, my right knee, down to me toes. So I had no feeling in there. So went to see the medic after a couple of days of putting up with this pain while out patrolling, and as they do in the army, he said, "You're all right. You've got shin splints, take some brufen, son. You'll be all right. Loosen your laces and take some brufen." So I did, and guess what? It didn't get any better, ironically. So it was eventually, after another couple of months, diagnosed as a condition known as popliteal artery entrapment syndrome. Basically, 5 centimeters of my artery had collapsed behind my kneecap or around my kneecap. Now, the reason this had happened, it's a very rare condition in young soldiers, but it's very common in people who are very, very fit and very active. And what had happened is, because where I was carrying so much weight and I was doing so much fitness while we were kind of off duty, the rate of my muscles in my legs weren't growing at the natural body rate, so they were growing at a faster rate than the rest of my body. So what happens is the two muscles each side of my artery and my leg squashed it, which
right, got you.
Which basically cut off the circulation. So another name for it's claudication. It's what people who are overweight and smokers suffer from. Basically, when when they get like fat build up in their arteries, it's very, very similar.
Yeah.
But there wasn't any fat in mine. It just completely squashed it. So, cut a long story short, I had 2 bypass operations on it while I was still serving. Never felt right, and I decided to leave the army in 1996 and start again. I was only 25, so I thought that gives me plenty of time to crack on new career. However, it didn't quite work out like that because I was
25 is a
unknown.
young age, isn't it?
Say again.
25 is a young age to leave the army.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd reached the rank of Lance Jack. But my career was stalling. I was struggling on force marches and BFTs. I don't have to do them now. For those who don't know what they are, BFTs are basic fitness test, which was a 1.5 miles squatted up in 15 minutes, then a 1.5 miles your best effort in under 10.5 minutes. I was struggling to do that. So I'd gone from doing BFTs of around 8.5 minutes to not being able to pass it. So I decided I'd got married at 19 and divorced at 23, by which time I'd been posted back from Germany to the Royal School of Artillery at Larkhill, and I decided I'd had enough. So I left the army in 1996 and met my partner, who we've been together with now 28 years, been married for 26 of them. Unbeknown to me, I was suffering with severe nightmares, and I was drinking a lot, I was eating a lot, I was smoking a lot, and
What do you think brought that on? Like,
now I know obviously it was post-traumatic stress disorder, but the only thing from what I've spoke to people, psychologists in the past, the only thing that I can think of is it's kind of leg related. Now the dreams, I say dreams, nightmares that I used to have, where I could be doing anything. I'd be in a normal situation, I'd be walking down the street, I'd turn a corner and I was straight back on the street of Northern Ireland. As soon as I turned that corner, I was full gear, bombed up, and back on the streets of Northern Ireland. And the only thing I can think of is it has something to do with my leg and the fact that I couldn't run away from any kind of situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I was never involved in anything. We never involved in any contacts. I mean, there was no bombs. There was no contacts. We had a couple of threats, as you do, but nothing happened to me that other guys unfortunately have gone through. So it was a strange feeling, and I think a lot that was one of the reasons that kind of put to me. Another one was obviously joining the army at 16 and being kind of brainwashed as we are into routine and not being demilitarized, basically. When you come out of the army, or when I came out of the army at the time and I left, I had 2 things in my hand. My mate was waiting on the other side of the gate for me, and I had 2 things in my hand, and one was my little red book with all my qualifications and all that gumph, and the other one was invisible, but it was my brain. And I walked out that gate, and I felt like, right, put my brain in my head, and I kind of thought to myself, right, what the hell do I do now? How do I go about getting housing? how do I
yeah,
go about looking for jobs and doing all this and all that? We weren't taught anything then. You know, and you were basically left to your own devices.
yeah. I was going to
That was
say
nice.
how.
So
I was going to ask how your transition was from military to civilian. Did it go
it was
smoothly or
horrific.
difficult?
It was
Yeah,
horrific. Like I said, there was no help. Once you were kind of told you were leaving, that was it.
yeah,
You were surplus to requirement. You weren't any good for anything. You were basically given all the crappy jobs and everything that nobody else wanted to do. Or he's leaving, and he can go and do it. He's not going to be at the end of the day. And and it was garbage. So I remember, luckily, like I said, I'd met my missus my now wife 6 months before I'd left the army. So I
yeah,
moved in with her and her parents, which was a godsend.
yeah. Definitely.
So we were there for best part of a year, and then we got our own place, and we've we've now lived in the same. Well, we've moved between houses probably 75 yards, and we've moved from a parents' house, which I can actually see out the window about 150 yards. I can hit it with a 7 iron on a good day if I'm straight. So Bridget's lived in the same village all of her life, so we live in a quiet little village on the
Yeah,
outskirts of Salisbury Plain, and then it's fabulous. You know, it's like how Newcastle or things places were in the olden days. You can leave your car open at night,
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
out, and it's still there in the morning. You know,
yeah,
so once I'd kind of had a little bit of leave, I'd I'd went got Christmas out of the way. I went to the job centre, told them that you get taught when you're in the army. Oh, everybody wants to hire an ex squaddy. They love us, you know. They think we're
yeah.
fantastic. So I went to the job centre, and I always remember the first conversation I went in all proud with me shirt and tie on and my little red book and my CV. And I said, I've just left the army, and here's my CV. And have you got any jobs for me in the area? And they said, well, what did you do? And I said, I was air defence. And they said, well, what did that entail? I said, blowing up aeroplanes, basically. And they said, oh, well, we haven't got a lot of call for that in Civvy Street. Have you ever done security? And, oh, God, here
Yeah,
we go. So it was just years of security and crap mundane jobs and sitting in porta cabins for 12
yeah,
hours on a Saturday night and Sunday night. And it was garbage. I eventually managed to get out of that and started working in sales. And I worked for different companies. You know, I worked for all the gas and electric companies. I worked for Sky. I worked for companies that um,
Did you go
provided
knocking, did you go knocking on the doors?
No, I've knocked on many doors, mate. I've knocked on many
Yeah,
doors. I could sell sand to an Arab if needed. But yeah, but they never lasted. The jobs never lasted more than 6 months because I got bored with them. I must have gone through, to my last count. I think I've since I left the army, I've had over 50 jobs
wow, that's a lot.
be-
That's a lot, isn't it?
because I just get bored with them, and there was always something in my head that
Yeah,
wouldn't let me go on. I just switch off, and again, it was all PTSD related.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I was diagnosed back in 2016, I think it was, when I went to combat stress, and that was kind of the beginning of the recovery, really. Or
yeah, yeah.
um, I
What was
say
combat
recovery.
stress like?
By their own admission, they're not the best in the world. It's like all the other program now. Sort of post COVID, we all know what it was like. We could go to
Yeah.
these places, and we could go to Tirett House with combat stress. We could go to Tidworth. We could go anywhere, and there'd be loads of us running around like maniacs. And it was like being back army, because you had loads of lads in the same situation, and it was when you left. I mean, when you're in there, I'd done a total of 10 weeks altogether. I'd done the two-week programs, anger management and the cognitive behavior therapy. So they were two-week programs, and then I'd done the 6-week PTSD course. Now, like I said, they're not by their own admission at the time, they weren't the best people, because once you'd finished the 6-week program, you were left to get on with it. There was no after programs. There was a couple of little coffee mornings that they used to hold at Tedworth House in Tidworth, which now unfortunately, like many of the places, is closed down post COVID, pre-COVID, and doesn't look like it's opening. So it was good to get the diagnosis and find out what the problems were.
Did you get a bit of closure?
Yeah. And you've got to own a lot of your illnesses. We all know PTSD is an illness. And you've got to be big enough to stand up and own it. I mean, if you want to turn around and say, "Oh, I've got PTSD, I want to feel sorry for myself, I'm not going to do anything, I don't want," then fine, that's entirely up to you. A lot of us do that because there's days when we can't be bothered getting out of bed. I certainly do. I know you do. We know lots of people. We know lots of people who do, and if that's
mood
your
swings,
way,
isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Every day is different. I don't plan for tomorrow or next week. I can't turn around and say, "Oh, next week let's go and do this for a couple of days," because I can guarantee you by that time I'll have either completely forgot about it or I just can't be bothered. Something will have wound me up, something completely irrelevant, or I'll be too tired, and it's just day by day, and I think that's how a lot of veterans
one day
survive.
at a time.
Yeah, absolutely, and even psychologists and psychiatrists will tell us, take one day at a time. If you don't want to do anything tomorrow, don't do anything tomorrow. We're a different breed when it comes to civilians. Unfortunately, we try to do things and we want to do things, and our brain has all these great ideas, but when it comes to putting them into practice, it doesn't it doesn't want to play sometimes. But so
where do you think you are? I was just going to say, where do you think you are? Where do you think you are in your recovery now? Like, at what place, and with the Invictus stuff that you've been involved with and that?
Wow, that's a great question. I suppose we best tell the people out there who don't know what we've been doing, really, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
I'm in a good place. Back to the leg story, because that's sort of massively important with my recovery. In 2018, when I was out walking the dog, it completely collapsed again. So I had another bypass operation on it. Except this time, when I had the bypass operation, the surgeon sliced through a major nerve in me leg, and he killed all the feeling on the inside of, so he killed all the feeling on the inside of my leg. So he bypassed it. So the original problem was still there. I could still feel it when I was out playing golf. I had no feeling down the inside of my leg, and I'm in a very unique and kind of privileged position where I play a lot of charity golf with a lot of guys who are amputees. Now, I'd been talking
Yeah.
to a lot of them who were trauma victims and guys who had decided to have amputations for medical reasons. They decided to
Yeah.
have it
Yeah.
off for themselves. I mean, they weren't involved in any IED blasts or anything like that. So I'd done a lot of research about having it amputated. It was always something that was I'd thought about for a long, long time. And
Yeah.
a lot of them said the same thing. They said, Have you spoke to Alex Crick in Salisbury Hospital? I said, I'm going to clue who's that. And they give me the email address. Now, Alex Crick is one of the, if not the top surgeon in the NHS. At
Yeah.
Salisbury Hospital. Um, she she has she runs a veterans clinic down at Salisbury, and
Yeah.
it's basically the number one hospital in the country for looking after veterans and serving forces personnel, because of obviously the catchment in the area where we are, with Salisbury playing
Yeah.
biggest
Yeah.
the
It's
biggest
massive
training
down there.
areas and the biggest numbers of serving soldiers within the area. So I sent her an email and explaining the whole situation, and I got a phone call 9:30 on a Monday evening, and she introduced herself, and basically the first words that came out of her mouth were, "Well, you've been through the shit with this, haven't you?" And I said to her, "I like you." I said, "But have I?" I said, I've just put up with years of pain." She said, "No, you need to come in now and see me." So we went in and seen her, and basically my knee and my leg was trashed, absolutely trashed. I'd had best part of 30 years walking around on a leg that was unfit for purpose, basically. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we decided she agreed. We want me to go through your knee because you're going to be back in here in 2 years, and I'm going to be taking it off
Yeah.
above the knee again as well. Let's not bother.
Wow.
Let's get it done and
I
dusted.
bet that was scary.
It wasn't really, because I'd kind of already made me mind up, and compared to guys who are
Yeah.
kind of hit blasts in Afghan, and they're out patrolling in Helmand or wherever they're out patrolling, and the next thing they hear a bang or they don't even remember it, and the next thing they're doing is waking up in
Yeah.
Birmingham or St York, and that's more scary, to wake up and look
Yeah.
down and think,
Definitely.
I've got no legs. Going through that trauma, that's a lot scarier, I think, than decide. But it was still a
Yeah.
major factor. Don't get me wrong,
Oh, it's like
because
you're
having your leg
having you're
off,
having your leg taken off, and it's yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, that was the biggest factor. I had psychologists in there every session I went to see her. So there was always Alex Crick in there. There was always somebody from Help the Heroes, a psychologist. There was always a Blesma
Yeah.
rep in there, and there was always somebody from the Defence Military Welfare Service, a guy who's permanently based down in Salisbury Hospital, a guy called Matty Long, ex Royal Artillery guy. He's fantastic
Yeah.
lad.
Yeah.
I'd wake up after the operation, and he'd just be sat in the corner doing a crossword or something, drinking coffee, or he'd just come in and wake me up for the sake of waking me up because he could. So that was the biggest issue, was how I'd react when I had the leg off. So the advice I was given was, you can change your mind for up until the point that needle goes in your arm and you're asleep. She said, I'll be sat by you every inch of the way. And I said, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
The only way we're going to do it is by finding out. So on the 18th of November 2021, I went under the knife at Salisbury Hospital,
Yeah.
and the leg came off. And when I woke up,
How long was your
true to
surgery?
about 4.5 hours, 4.5 5 hours altogether.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was all good. Everything went perfectly. He said the issue was how I'd react when I seen it off for the first time. Now, Considering I'd made this big song and dance and fuss about it, with it not being there. I'd sort of sat for weeks, a couple of months and weeks up to it, with sort of dark blankets and towels over my right leg so I couldn't see it. And I'd try to ignore it, and just look at my left leg and ignore my right one. If I was sat on a bed or something, I'd hang it over the side and put a towel over it so I couldn't see it, and kind of desensitized to not having it there.
Yeah. Could you feel your toes still?
Is there what?
Did you get feeling in your toes still, even though they weren't there?
Phantom limb pain. Yeah, you still get it to this day. I still get it to this day. It's settled down massively now, because what happens is, until if you're doing something, if you're walking around on my prosthetic, then because you're doing something, your brain's busy. You're not thinking about it. It's when you're sitting down doing nothing. As soon as somebody says to me, "Can you feel your toes in your right foot?" I automatically think, yes, I can. So while I'm talking to you now, I've got my prosthetic off. You remember this fella?
Yes, that's the one. I remember it on your head.
So do some of the Americans. So so when it's off and somebody says, "Oh, can you remember it?" and I'm not doing anything, I'm now trying to bend the toes, my invisible toes, in my right foot that isn't there. So my brain's telling me, bend your toes, but it's a bizarre
weird.
But the longer you get on with it, you just kind of deal with it naturally. You know what I mean? From when it first came off, it was horrific. It felt like me stump of my leg, which wasn't there, was going through the mattress in the bed onto the floor, and my toes were sat in a block of ice. But there was nothing there. You know what I mean? There was nothing there. It was a strange feeling. But so when I woke up from the surgery, the surgeon said, "Yep, everything's gone okay. You're under no pressure to look at your limb." And I just sat up bolt right, whipped the blankets off, looked at it, and just burst out laughing. And that's all I'd done for about. Well, I was in hospital for 2 weeks, and I was just constantly just laughing. So I don't know whether it was the drugs I was taking or what, but it was just it was just such a relief to have it off. And obviously had to get used to a few adaptations around the house and learn to walk again. But the major achievement for me was I was back on the golf course 4 months after I had the amputation.
That's quick.
It was very quick. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun trying to stand in bunkers, or walk into a bunker. That was fun. So 4 months and I was back on the golf course. I'd done a few things. I started swimming, walking, tried a few of the different things. I went up to Lillishall, up to the recovery program, which I'm off back up
was that
to.
Battleback?
Say again?
Was that Battleback you went on?
Battleback, yeah, the Battleback recovery program up at Lillishall. Sorry, yeah. So I'm back up. I'm going back up there on Monday the 15th for 5 days. Just so it'd be nice to catch up with some of the staff and get something else going. So last year I'd done a few of the Invictus trials for Dusseldorf for this year in September, and
how did you find that?
It was fun. I wasn't in a good place mentally at the time. It was difficult, but it was fun just to get back out and see people, and catch up with a few people who I knew and meet some new people, and just to get out and do something. That was the main thing, I guess. So I'd done swimming. I tried archery, sit down volleyball, table tennis. There was loads of different stuff that I tried, but
lots of choice.
It was good, but I knew I was going to get a phone call in February to say whether or not I'd been accepted, for the Invictus trial. So
Yeah.
so the 8th of February comes and the phone rings and comes up with a withheld number. And I thought, oh God, all right, I'll answer that. And it was one of the girls from the Battleback Centre at Lillishall.
Yeah.
One of the girls who was the receptionist, Hannah, and she introduced herself and she says, "Hi, Stacey, it's Hannah." She said, "Just a quick phone call." She said, "Unfortunately, you haven't been selected for the Invictus team in Dusseldorf this year." And I said, "Well, that's nothing to worry about." I said, "I wasn't expecting to." I said, "So it was just about getting out and having some fun." I said, "But I'll give it a try next year." And I was just about to put the phone down. And she says, "Hang on." She says, "You have been selected, however, to represent the United Kingdom for 2 weeks in Las Vegas."
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah. I said, "When's that then?" She said, 19th of February. And me kind of I've switched off at this point. Oh, all right. And okay. That gives me a year to do some training. She says, "No, we're going in 11 days. So I said, this is this is a wind up. This. She said, "No, it's not." I said, "It is." I said, "This is a wind up." So she said, Do you want to put the phone down? I'll ring you back in 10 minutes. I said, "Why? So you're going to start winding me up again in 10 minutes, are you?" She said, "Stacey, it's not a wind up." She said, "You go to Las Vegas." So I said, "Yeah, all right then, okay." So I think it was the 19th of February, we all met up at
19th of February.
19th of February. There was 31 of us veterans who all got the same phone call on or around the same date. 31 veterans and 9 staff, and we all met up at Uxbridge University campus. And then on the 20th, we flew out to Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada for 2 weeks, which was where mine and your love affair started.
Life changing. Yeah, life changing out there.
It was incredible. It was fabulous. We met some incredible people, not just from our team, but from the Air Force, the US Air Force. Now, for the people who don't know, the US Air Force trials is what the injured veterans use for their trials for the Warrior Games programs. So there was the US Air Force team, which was to call it a team was a little bit of an understatement, really, wasn't it? There was there was a hell of a lot of them there. It was fantastic. There was a team from the US Army. And there was also a team from Georgia. Oh, they came prepared, didn't they? Now, for those of you who've never been on Nellis Air Force Base, it's basically a city within a wall, and it's immense, isn't it? It's got McDonald's, it's got Burger Kings, it's got banks, it's got
Popeyes.
It's got garages, it's got shopping centres. It is absolutely immense, and then it's got the Air Force stuff on top of that. So so we were there for 2 weeks and spent a lot of the time in the gym, which is probably about the size of a mid-table championship football ground.
Yes, it was massive.
Massive.
The kit was just about.
Yeah, and it was that was life changing. It was incredible. The people that I met from both sides of the pond, Team UK. I've done lots of team events and team building events, but I've never met a bunch of people, 31 of us, who bonded so well in such a short space of time, and it was a fabulous life-changing experience. I came away with 2 medals in the pool. I won a bronze, the 50-meter front crawl, and a silver, the 50-meter breaststroke. I think it was. I think the only reason I got beat because the bloke who beat me had a dog. I'm sure it was pulling him along, but
yeah.
but it was fabulous.
What?
It was incredible.
How did you
So,
find it? How did you find the sitting volleyball? Because that was, I think that for me, that was my favourite. That was my favourite because the bond was great.
it was just it was something else because we were. I mean, we'll not talk about the Georgian team because that was basically their Paralympic team that they brought over,
It was,
wasn't it?
yeah.
And well, we will talk about them. I mean, it was hard to bond with them because of the language barriers, but they were a great bunch of guys. But when there's a bloke with no legs sat at the back of the court and he's throwing the ball 10, 15 feet in the air, and then he's smashing it straight into your face on the other side of the court.
Yeah, they were very good. We did push them though, didn't we?
Yeah, we done all right. It was like you said, the bonding on it was incredible because we'd never done a lot of the team events together, so there was a lot of where we got our asses kicked, we got our asses handed to us, didn't we? But it was worth every second of it because there was no animosity, there was no showing off from the other guys. It was just respect and love all the time, wasn't it? And
yeah.
The Americans, again, I think we're all still in contact with so many of them.
I think what I like about knowing the Americans is seeing we can still see their journey with the Warrior Games on social media, which is nice to see.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We're still following them. Like we're still all in touch with different guys, so we know how they're doing. Like you said, seeing how far they've progressed as well and how far they're coming on, it's fabulous, you know. And hopefully we'll get to see them again because I don't think we're finished with them. I said we've got a lot.
I want to ask you. Yeah, I want to ask you a question about the gin bottle, and can you explain what the gin bottle was and background?
The tequila bottle.
That's it, tequila bottle, not gin bottle.
Tequila bottle. Right. Okay. We had a night. I think it was the night we'd all won when I'd certainly won my medal. And hang on, give us 2 seconds and I'll grab it. It's over there. Give me 2 seconds.
Oh, go on then.
So, excuse all this big pile of stuff here. Right. That's very here we go. Right. So there we go. Yeah, we had a night on the beer, didn't we? And
we did, yeah.
There was a few bottles of tequila behind the bar, and I took a fancy to one of them, and I asked the barman for it. I said, "Can I have that bottle?" And he says, "You can have it if you pay for it." I said, "Well, how much is it?" He said, "Well, the tequila that's in it is $45 a shot." So I thought, right, okay. So I said, "I sod it." So I said, "Right." I said, "How many shots are in there?" So he gave it a shake and he said, "Oh, probably about 2 or 3." So I said, "Right." I said, "Just empty it. Just give me whatever's in there." I said, "I'll pay for it." And I want the bottle. I said, "How much for the bottle?" And he said $200. He said $200. And I thought, right.
Wow.
I thought, okay. Now it wasn't $200. Like I said, he $90 for the 2 shots of tequila, and then he charged me for £100 or $100 for the bottle of tequila, for an empty bottle of tequila. But it was worth every penny of it because it's a Day of the Dead tequila bottle.
Yeah, it's not your standard bottle, that.
Not your standard bottle. He said when it was full, worth $800.
Yeah, that's a lot. What did the wife say?
Incredible. They're an incredible piece of kit.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I was saying, what did the other half say to you when you got home?
She was, do you know what? She was over the moon.
Yeah.
I'd actually rang her and told her, and I'd said to her, I said, "Oh, just to let you know, I've spent something like $400 tonight." This was obviously the night we've been when we were celebrating. I said, "Please don't be cross. I've spent $400 now. I've just spent $100 on an empty tequila bottle." And she said, "Why would I be?" She said, "Why would I be mad?" She said, "You've just won 2 medals for the United Kingdom, you dickhead." You know, so I thought, oh, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
She was
nice.
When I got home, she was incredible. I didn't realise how damaged I was emotionally until I got sort of out there and started competing again. Because just to be able to compete, and especially when I don't know if you were at the pool when I won my medals, but just to be able to compete again, you know, was incredible.
Yes,
and I've
some
never
amazing
cried.
pictures.
It was crazy. I've never cried so much in my life. And when I eventually got home, when we got back on the 4th, I remember driving back from Heathrow and my head was just spinning. You know, I think it took me I think it took us all about a week to kind of decompress from that, didn't it? And
it's been on that such high and then coming down.
It was nuts. It really was nuts. But the good thing about it is we're all still in touch, or 95% of us are.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But we're all still in touch, and we're all still there for each other, which, like you said, very, very rarely happens, I find. And
I need to get myself added to the WhatsApp group again.
Well, we all know. Yeah, we all know your reasons why, mate, and that's your decision. Don't, like you said, don't feel pressured into doing that. You do it when you're ready, because sometimes you can take too much on, and with you doing this and everything else that you're doing, you just concentrate on you. Like you said, sometimes it can be a bit of an overload, mate, and we do need just a couple of days away from it. So just everybody knows your reasons, and we all support you, buddy.
What do you want to tell us about your new leg then? Because you told us a little bit about this in Vegas, and what opportunities does it give to you?
Yeah, the new leg is basically a massive upgrade on the one that I've got at the moment. What I have at the moment is basically just a start, just for standing and walking. Can't do anything else on it. It's not designed for that. But I've now started the process of being fitted with my what I call my super leg, other people call my bionic leg, but it's basically one of the expensive ones that veterans are entitled to, who have, if they qualify for it, injuries attributable to service, which mine clearly is. Not that Veterans UK would think that, but they have now.
Yeah.
But that's another story for another day. So that'll be delivered on the. Delivered sounds like Amazon are going to turn up with it. I've got to go to Bournemouth Hospital to pick it up. I've got a few. I've got a few sessions where I've got a few diagnostic sessions, few more fitting sessions. So hopefully I'll be walking out of Bournemouth Hospital on the 17th of July with it. So I've got. I'm away next week, and then I've got 2 weeks in Greece with a family. So hopefully it'll be ready by the time I get back.
Nice. I'm just thinking. I was just asking, what does that leg the new leg allow you to do that you can't do now? Then what is it?
Everything. There's two knees is what the bottom half of the legs are called, and I've got to do 4-week trials on each of them. Now the first one is called the Quattro, and it's you can basically do everything that you could do normally. You know what I mean? You can walk up and down stairs on them, you can run, you can cycle, you can walk on sand, you can walk on rocks, anything.
Got more stability
Can,
then.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the only difference between that one and the second leg, which will be the second 4-week trial, is the cost, and B, the fact that the second leg will allow me to, if I want to, basically swim on it. The first leg only has an intrinsic protection rating of 67, which means it can only spend something like half an hour in up to a meter of water, whereas the Genium, which is the one that I'm hoping to get, you can spend as long as you want in it, basically.
That's good.
And that's kind of where I'm being pushed to, or I'm looking at. But again, I might prefer the Quattro. I never know. But as long as they're both up for walking, because a few weeks ago I was talking to a guy from Walking with the Wounded about what I want to do now that we've been to Vegas and I've done this, and he asked me if I fancy going for a walk next year. And I said, well, what kind of walk? He says, have you ever heard of the Marathon of the Sands? I said, no. He said, it's a 251 kilometer ultra marathon across the Sahara, self-sufficient for 7 days. And how does that sound? And without even, I just went, yeah, I'll do it. A complete lunatic. And he says, it's hard work. I said, I don't care. I'll do it a bat. So next April, I'm doing a 251 kilometer ultra marathon across the Sahara with the Walking with the Wounded team. I've got a light build up to it in November. I'm doing 100 kilometers of the route in November.
That's not very far.
Well, that's what I said. It's just a doddle. Now the thing with this ultra marathon next year, it's not as simple as it sounds. It's not as simple as like a marathon a day, where your standard 26 miles. What it is they split it down into different distances over the different stages. So one of the final stage is a kind of 7-kilometer walking or running where everybody's greeted or whatever, but it ranges from 26 kilometers to the longest part is 90 kilometers in one hit. So 18, 19, 20 hours of walking across the Sahara, which,
how many days is it over?
7 days. And you've got to be completely self-sufficient. So you've got to take all your clothes, all your food, all your sleeping equipment, trainers, first aid kits, water. The only thing that they supply you with basically is somewhere to stick your sleeping bag under, and there's filling up points for your water before you set off on every single day. So it's classed as the hardest marathon on earth. But it's one of these things where if I don't start it, if I don't find out if I can do it or not, I'll curse myself forever. So I've got to be done. So
now, once you cross that finish line, once you get the chance to cross that finish line, it'll be a life change in itself.
Absolutely. I think the 100 kilometer one, I think that's going to be daunting enough. I mean, it's not thick sand all the way. There is parts where you're up and down dunes and massive dune hills and sand hills, but a lot of it is on the Bedouin trails, which have kind of been made over centuries. So it's but yeah. So I'm kind of thinking, how the hell do you train to walk in the Sahara? You know, it can be up to 50 degrees, and how do you train for that? And the simple answer is that you can't. You know, I mean, you can go out and you can do as much walking as you want, but I think it's kind of
hit yourself on South Shield Beach.
Yeah, it's going to have to be that squaddy mentality, I think, where we just kind of put our heads down and go for it. You know, but like I said, if you don't try, you don't know. There's only one way, really. So we'll see what happens.
Like you said, squaddy mentality. That's all we've known for so many years. Sort of.
Yeah, and it's I don't. I think I've got to punish myself physically now for all the mental torture that I put other people through the years with the PTSD and things like that. Not on purpose, but it's kind of my way of paying back to people. And
just remember that one. Just remember that one day at a time, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only way we can do it. But on a positive note, at least I'll only have 1 foot to worry about blisters on, so don't need to worry about that.
That's one way you're looking at it. You might get phantom blisters.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
We're coming to the end now. We're coming at the end now, but I can't. We're coming to the end now, but I can't go away without talking a little bit about football. And obviously, you know that you're an avid black and white Toon fan, and I'm an avid Borough fan. Both teams are doing quite well. What are your hopes for this season and further on for Newcastle?
I'm just blown away with what they've done. If we can get Champions League now, it'll be incredible after 20 years. You know, lots of people are obviously moaning about the Saudi content and the fact that we've spent so much money. Well, we haven't spent so much money when you think of how much Mike Ashley spent. You know, I mean, I think we've spent 200 million since Eddie Howe took charge, which in these days is nothing. I mean, you look what Chelsea have bought. No. Chelsea have spent 600 million, and I think we're 12th at the minute. Bless them. But I think anything less than Champions League now is going to be a massive, would be a bit of a disappointment. I think Liverpool are 6 points behind us. They've got 3 games left. So we've got
you need
4.
to win your game in hand.
We need to win the game in hand. So we need 7. We need 7 points from the last 4 games, or we need 7 from the last 5 games. I think I knew we weren't going to get anything out of Arsenal. I think they're having a fantastic season as well. But Champions League definitely, and hopefully we'll have a local derby again. Next, if the Borough can get themselves up, because they're doing fantastic. As long as you keep on.
We're obviously in the playoff semi-finals. We've got Coventry home and away, and then we've got Blunderland, who are in the semi-final as well. They've got Luton. It could end up being a northeast final in the playoffs at Wembley. And I was talking to my brother the other day, and he mentioned on the day of this playoff final, which I think is the 27th of May. You potentially could have Sunderland and Borough fans in London, and Newcastle play Chelsea away on the same day. So you're going to have all the Geordies, all the Borough fans, and all the Mackhams in London. So
that's going to
see how that goes.
Isn't it? My
Trafalgar
God,
Square.
That'll be very, very interesting. So
yeah.
Now the question is, I've got more. I'd rather see Borough come up than the Mackhams. I despise everything about Sunderland. I despise the place. I despise the football club. You know what I mean? I think the best thing that could do with Sunderland, with a stadium of shite, is just lock all the doors up, fill it full of water, and just use it as a big swimming pool. It's I don't want to see them come up. I really, really don't. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to have a local derby again. But I'd like to see the Smoggies back up. I think the biggest problem that you're going to have is whether or not you keep hold of Michael Carrick, because there's a few people.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed we can get there. He's done really well since he's come in, so fingers crossed we can get there.
Outstanding. Yeah. He's done outstanding. As long as you don't get rid of him and get Frank Lampard, that could be fun.
Oh, no way, not Frank Lampard. His win ratios hardly anything. He's that
terrible.
bad.
It's terrible. He's not a manager. So some footballers don't make good managers, and he unfortunately is one of those. So he's not a manager.
If you think of Chelsea and Tottenham, they're two clubs that are horrendously run at the moment.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well,
right.
See what happens. Fingers crossed. So good luck to the Smoggies.
Fingers crossed. Well, Stacey, so we've spoke about your background, military, your leg, stuff like that. But I like to end a session when I've spoke to somebody and what you're going to do for self-care for the rest of the day, because sometimes it's quite a heavy podcast to talk about your feelings and what you've done and stuff like that. So you've got any plans? Have you got any plans for self-care today?
Well, not self. Well, yeah, I have actually. I'm away on Monday. I'm going away on Monday to the Battleback Centre at Lillish Hall again. So I've got a big pile of ironing that needs doing now. So I'm going to get some ironing done, I think. And once that's done, just chill out and hit the Xbox. I think that's
good. So, sounds good to me.
But what you got planned? You got anything planned?
There's Hadley, where we live. Their reserves are in the cup final at Leiston, so I think I'm going to go and watch the cup final at Leiston. It's a canny little ground, lovely pitch. So I think I'm going to do that tonight.
Happy days.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
And then I'm back to work tomorrow.
Nice
cool.
Nice one.
Nice. Thanks for everything, Stacey. Thanks for being my first nut job podcast victim. I'll get it uploaded. So I just want to confirm you're happy for me to share it and upload it onto YouTube.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll send out the link to the first one so people can have a listen. See if we can get some followers or subscribers or something like that.
No worries, mate. Sounds good. Sounds good.
No worries.
Anytime.
Thanks a lot, Stacey. Have a good day.
You're welcome, buddy. Okay. Take care, pal.
Cheers. See you later.
Speak soon. Love you lots, mate. Ta-da.
Bye. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Right, people. Thanks very much for listening in. I think it was quite a varied podcast for the first one. Some great questions and answers from Stacey there. Obviously, he's been through quite a lot, but it's good to hear that he's on the recovery process, and he's getting support through Battleback and through the Invictus team and stuff like that. So that's absolutely brilliant. There'll be more podcasts in the future. It's still a new podcast, something I've never, ever done before. So I'm going to try and work out how to put a bit of music in there. Maybe a couple of videos or something like that to add to it, to play. And then we'll just go from there. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for listening. Please share and subscribe. That's it. Everybody have a good day. Thank you.